Hello and welcome to this short video on simplifying complex business operations. Now, those of you who are familiar with process automation already know that businesses use these technologies to streamline operations, reduce risk, cost, and to improve quality. What you may not know is that most of the providers you're probably looking at are really only capable of creating static automation. What I mean by that is my process model must reflect every single permutation of that business process. And as a result, this is going to increase the complexity of our application and make maintenance more costly and require more senior resources. So a funny story recently, I was on the phone with a customer who referred to AgilePoint as their Chief Complexity Reduction Officer. And I thought, wow, this is a great way to put it, right? And it's really going to be the focus of today's video, which is to help illustrate just how drastically AgilePoint can simplify addressing very complex, very dynamic process automation needs. Right, going back to our earlier example, we can spend hours or days modeling out every single permutation required for a business process, or we can leverage AgilePoint's inherently dynamic capabilities and simply address each scenario on the fly as the business requires. So before I get into that here, I just want to give you an example of just how significantly AgilePoint can help simplify how you run your business and how you automate your processes. Right, a great example of this comes from a larger Fortune 100 manufacturer. They jumped on the process automation trend pretty early on, and over the period of about 15 years had built more than 8,000 automations across a number of platforms, some third-party and some homegrown. Now, as a part of their digital transformation journey, they thought, how can we rationalize this? How can we make ourselves more agile, more productive, while still shouldering the same workload? So after an extensive review process of the market, they ultimately decided on AgilePoint. And in 2 years after adopting the AgilePoint platform, were able to reduce their application portfolio by 80%. They did that, again, by leveraging AgilePoint's more dynamic, highly flexible architecture to build applications that easily handled scenarios that required dynamic approval, as well as those that were not well defined ahead of time. I think what's most compelling about this is they were able to build these powerful and flexible applications purely by citizen-driven development. Right? By that I mean line of business experts in various departments, like procurement as an example, were able to build their own processes that supported the daily global operations of more than 100,000 users. So that's what you're going to see here in the next segment. Okay, so to help illustrate my example here, I'm going to use a non-disclosure agreement review process. And just to kick things off here, let's go ahead and populate this with data. Now, when I scroll over to the next section in my form, you'll notice that when I select different regions, I'm going to have dynamic approvers associated as a result. So with North America, I have a set of approvers. Same thing with Europe and Asia. But for now, let's just go ahead and kick this off. If I go back into my task list here, I should have a new task waiting for me. And just to help understand what's going on behind the scenes here, we're going to bring up the process model. And as you can see here, from a human task perspective, there are only 2 steps. But if I had a scenario where I had multiple potential configurations of approvers, I would otherwise need to build out all of these workflow branches to accommodate for all of those permutations, significantly adding complexity, time to market, and of course, ongoing maintenance cost. Now with AgilePoint, addressing that scenario where I don't necessarily know who my approvers will be beforehand, or needing dynamic process logic as a result, again, just one single step here in the AgilePoint platform. So if I click into this, because AgilePoint is so inherently flexible, I simply tell AgilePoint which process pattern and which approvers to insert dynamically while the workflow is in flight. So as you can see here, I can choose between parallel and sequential routing, and also select from a predefined scope of users. Now in my case, I have a few user groups already defined. This can be easily controlled. But in other words, right, I can simply just search for all of the users that I want to add. So let's add Ian. Let's add Scott. So once I've determined the process pattern, the users, I can also assign a voting percentage. In other words, of this group of users who have all received tasks, I want the workflow to move forward when we have 66% of those users approving the task. So as you can see here, I've just completely added a new dynamic task into my workflow. And if I go back into my process tracker, we're going to see that all of those users have now received a task. So this is just one of many great examples of how AgilePoint can simplify complex business operations, and most importantly, right, ensure that your processes conform to the business requirement rather than what your low-code or process platform brings to the table. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time.